Recently, several Arizona political operatives who illegally laundered money to fight pro-education ballot measures here and in California were brought to justice. You probably haven't heard much about this story because the Arizona Daily Star failed to write about it, amazingly, and the Republic only wrote one fairly short piece. So here are some more details. These political operatives in Arizona were fined $1 million by the state of California, and the organizations in California that accepted their money were ordered to turn over $15 million to the state of California. That occurred because California has enacted very strict campaign finance laws. Arizona, unfortunately, has not enacted post-Citizens United laws, and I'm afraid will never do so. These Arizonans faced both civil and criminal charges in California and avoided being charged criminally in return for paying that hefty fine. So, who are these individuals and what led to their shenanigans? There are three primary players you need to know about. The first is Sean Noble. He is the former chief of staff for former Congressman John Shadegg, and he runs DC Noble, a political consulting firm based in Arizona. The Arizona press has written very little about him, but the national press has exposed him as being an operative of the Koch brothers, the billionaire Kansas oil barons who fund the Tea Party. They are famously anti-tax and anti-public education. Noble sets up 501c4 nonprofit organizations in Arizona that the Koch brothers use to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars to fight government policies like the Affordable Care Act and to pour into campaigns against candidates and ballot measures that they dislike. In July of 2011, Noble joined forces with other Republican operatives in Arizona to set up Americans for Responsible Leadership, one of these shadow C4 organizations. The two most notable frontmen for this organization are Robert Graham, the current chairman of the Arizona Republican Party, and Kirk Adams, former Speaker of the House in Arizona. Americans for Responsible Leadership is the C4 that poured millions into those California ballot measure campaigns, including fighting one to fund education. Americans for Responsible Leadership also contributed almost $2 million in dark money to fight two ballot measures in Arizona, including citizen-led Proposition 204, which would have restored much-needed funding to Arizona schools, and of which I was the volunteer state chairperson. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's too bad, but that was more than a year ago, and there's nothing that can be done about it now. Why should we care? Well, here's why. Because Sean Noble, who has access to hundreds of millions of dollars in dark money, is working to get a slate of candidates elected to the executive branch in Arizona, including Doug Ducey for governor in 2014. Ducey, as state treasurer, was the chairman of the No on 204 campaign, but he has not been held accountable for using those illicit campaign contributions, nor will he be. He is backed by the state's big power brokers, including Jim Click, who also rounded up more than $300,000 from car dealers statewide to fight Proposition 204. There is nothing in state law that prevents billionaires like the Koch brothers from coming in and buying the governorship for Ducey so they have someone in the governor's office who they control. In the case of Proposition 204, the California settlement revealed that the donations came from a variety of other multimillionaires who also do not support neighborhood schools. So, who are these other dark donors? Well, we recently learned some interesting information about them. As part of the settlement agreement, California agreed not to disclose the donors who contributed. However, California's redacted documents contain just enough information for resourceful reporters and education advocates to figure out some of the donors. What was interesting to discover was the involvement of the Fisher family, which owns The Gap, Old Navy, and Banana Republic. Also, investor Charles Schwab and philanthropist Eli Broad. The Fisher family gave $9 million in dark money. Why? Well, They are big charter school supporters, one of the major funders of the KIPP charter school dynasty, and big financial supporters of Teach for America, which supplies charter schools with cheap labor. Also interesting was the involvement of education reformer Eli Broad. He had promised Governor Jerry Brown in California that he would not get involved in fighting the pro-education ballot measure there, yet he gave $1 million to the opposition surreptitiously. Broad is a multimillionaire philanthropist who is a school privatization advocate. Charles Schwab is also a charter school advocate, and along with the Gates Foundation, recently put up $8 million to back bonds issued to the Aspire charter school chain to finance its expansion in California. He contributed $6.4 million in dark money. So initially, the common wisdom was that the Koch brothers had given all the funds to these C4s. Well, in this case, the dark money was from a variety of other sources, including some who believe in a privatized school model. So we have the very wealthy trying to boost their privatized education model by sabotaging the competition, neighborhood schools. Well, what can we do? It makes the public education supporters feel pretty powerless coming up against this type of illegal behavior and billionaire and millionaire business magnates using their resources to undermine our children's schools. Well, I know I will feel more empowered by not buying one more item of clothing from the Gap, Old Navy, or Banana Republic. I won't ever shop in their stores again, and I'm sending them a letter explaining why. I will never do business with Charles Schwab Investment Management. I also will never ever buy a car from Jim Click Automotive in Tucson, which our family has done in the past. I hope that you will join me in no longer frequenting businesses that are engaged in the business of trying to undermine public education. If all the teachers, parents, and public education supporters statewide and nationwide joined in this type of an effort, I do think it would make a difference.
Well, the big money in politics is really frightening, and it's getting bigger all the time. It's frightening enough when we know who the contributors are. When it comes to the dark money situation, it's even worse because some investigation opened up who it was, but basically we don't know. So it's really important. And when I say politics, I mean education too, because education today is politics. And when we talk about these big money philanthropists, the term that the educator Diane Ravitch uses is the billionaire boys club. These guys who are so much smarter than the rest of us and know so much more than us, or think they do, that they believe that even though they've never spent an hour teaching in a classroom at the K-12 level, they know how it should be done. So that's really frightening.
It's true, Dave. I mean, I told you this quote I ran across that I thought was very true, that there is nothing worse than a billionaire on a crusade. And I'm sorry, but I have to agree with that. These people are incredibly misguided, and they are looking out for a certain class of people that are not your average American, and they're actually harming average Americans. And I just find what they're doing incredible, really.
And some of them do it for mercenary reasons, because
Yes.
there's a profit motive.
Yes.
Some of them do it for what seem to be noble reasons, but they simply don't know enough to do it well. And they're not good listeners. These are boardroom bullies who know how to tell other people what's right and are used to having people nod yes, 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 because you want your job, and not used to listening to others. So it's a really worrisome situation all the way around. And I will try to honor those boycotts too. I'm going to have to see if I can divest myself of the little money I have in Charles Schwab and figure out how to do that.
Good. I mean, I think what's going on is we have almost a hostile takeover of our public schools, and being done in a very corporate way. And I think the very undemocratic piece of this is that these people think they can get away with doing this secretly. And they thought they were going to be able to keep those donations secret. And that is just undemocratic. And it's unfortunate that this is going on right now in our country. I think people are concerned about it on a much larger scale than just what's happening with regard to education issues.
It's important to shine light on this. And I know that a few years ago, nobody knew the name of the Koch brothers. Nobody knew about the very influential Alec. And as more people talked about it over and over again, it's become part of the parlance. This has got to become part of the parlance too. And fears about dark money and big money in politics have got to be right out there front and center, so they lose some of their power if people know what's going on.
That's right.